Daylight savings. Why? And more importantly, whose fucking fault is it? First of all,
stop blaming the goddamn farmers.
The concept was first introduced in 1895 by New Zealand entomologist George Hudson, who wanted more daylight after work to catch butterflies. He had initially proposed a 2-hour time shift, but there was no reason for anyone to listen to him at the time. So it was introduced in 1895, and nobody listened because it was just for the purpose of catching insects, but in 1916, during the war, Germany thought that they could use it to save coal. I believe this was at a time when the electricity to an entire city would be turned on and off at the same time. At least it would be to the streetlights. So having that extra hour of daylight would conserve electricity and therefore coal. All of this, of course, changed as man moved away from lighting being his greatest power suck. As lights have gotten more efficient and as we've started expending electricity on more and more things inside our homes, it's become less and less relevant and less useful. The most recent math says that daylight savings might save or cost the average household an extra 1% per year. That's about $4. Places that have long days year-round typically don't participate in daylight savings, that's why Hawaii doesn't. And places where more sunshine is actually a detriment, such as Phoenix, Arizona, they ignore it as well. I say it should be permanently established and then leave it the fuck alone. Daylight savings kills people.
With time tracking software, we can actually see that people are less productive the week after the clock changes. This comes with huge associated costs. To make things worse, most countries take away that hour of sleep on a Monday morning. Sleep deprivation can lead to heart attacks and suicides, and the daylight saving time Monday has a higher than normal spike in both. Other troubles come from scheduling meetings across time zones. Let's say you're trying to plan a 3-way conference between New York, London, and Sydney. Not an easy thing to do under the best of circumstances, but made extra difficult when they don't agree on when daylight saving time should start and end. In the spring, Sydney is 11 hours ahead of London and New York is 5 hours behind. But then New York is the first to enter daylight saving time and moves its clock forward an hour. 2 weeks later, London does the same. In one more week, Sydney, being on the opposite side of the world, leaves daylight saving time and moves its clock back an hour. So in the space of 3 weeks, New York is 5 hours behind London, then 4 hours, then 5 again, and Sydney is either 11, 10, or 9 hours from London, and 16, 15, or 14 hours from New York. And this whole crazy thing happens again in reverse 6 months later.
Which is even more complicated by the fact that you consider that countries that participate in daylight savings, not always the entire country participates in daylight savings. The United States is not the only place where part of us does daylight savings and the other part doesn't. Accurate timekeeping from town to town didn't used to matter. If there was a town 100 miles that way, it didn't matter if their clocks were 30 minutes different from yours. It would never matter. Then the trains started running, and they actually needed to know what time it was going to be where they were going, so we started introducing accurate timekeeping across the nation. That's a whole different video. We'll talk about it later.